All right, Be'ezrat Hashem. So we're continuing the Akdama of Heikhal HaKodesh. So we stopped last shiur in the crystallization of the vessels of the Mohim, of the Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, right? And we said Chokhmah, Bina, Vada'at, Gematria, Keter, right? That's the Mohim, that's the crown, right? And it's the ore of the Atzilut that comes from what? That comes from the three verticals that come out of the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the breath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is called Yahid Kadmon, the old one, right? With the perfection of one. That's the highest one. And then we have Or Mitzursach, the very refined light, the Or Tzach, and the refined light. These three are called together the Orot that will be Ma'atzil, that will create noblesse, okay? It's called the Olama Atzilut, the world of Atzilut, right? And that all creates the Keter, the Chokhmah, the Bina, the Da'at, right? And every time it crystallizes into a vessel in order for that light to be retained, right? Then it continues. Now we go into what is called the Hasadim. Hasadim is the, if you will, you have the brain, which is the intellect. Hasadim are the emotions, right? Right? And that light, those three lights together now crystallize into Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. Chesed, the name of Hashem that refers to Chesed. When you ask for Hashem's Chesed, it's Kel. The word Kel. Kel, Rahum, Vechanun. Kel is Chesed. Gevurah is Elokim. V'reshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. Hashem, with the word, with the Midat HaGevurah, created Shamayim v'aretz. Tiferet, the Yud Kevapli. Havaya. And then those lights get crystallized and come down, and from it comes out the other three parts of the Chasadim, which are called Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Netzach, the name of Netzach is Hashem Tzevakot. Hashem Tzevakot Imam. Right? When you say Hashem Tzevakot, we refer to Netzach, which sits right below Chesed. So it's on the right pipe, right? You have the Chokhmah. Under the Chokhmah, you have the Chesed. Under the Chesed, you have the Netzach, Hashem Tzevakot. The Hod, which is on the Din side, on the left side, is Elokim Tzevakot. And then you have the emergence of the balance between the two, like we have in the Tiferet, which is the emergence of the balance between the Chesed and the Gevurah. We also have the emergence of a balance between Netzach and Hod that is called Yesod, in the middle, right? So essentially we have the Keter, okay, that sometimes, and when we need to, comes through what is called the Da'at, which is the balance between the Chokhmah and the Bina, right? The Da'at comes out into the Tiferet, which is the balance between Chesed and Gvurah. Tiferet comes down to Yesod. That's the spine. That is the middle line. That Chadarich, Vechad Katzer, Vechad Benuni. In Patach Eliyahu, we say Chadarich. One pipe is long, which is the pipe of Chesed. One pipe is short, which is the pipe of Din. And one pipe is Benoni, is middle size, and that is the pipe of the Tiferet, the middle pipe. Right? The body has the right, Chesed, the left, Din, the middle, Tiferet, right? Rahamim, the Rahamim. When we speak about the Rahamim, we talk about why? Because the Rahamim is the balance between the two, and is the hidden and protected pipeline from the klipot, from the outside influence, right? The inner body is protected. You have the outside on the right, you have this, so the right is exposed, the left is exposed, but in between is protected. And Yesod is called Kel Hai. Kel Hai v'Kayam, right? Kel Hai is Yesod. And he is the Chotem HaHaim. It's called Chotam HaHaim, the stamp of life. Why? Yesod brings life, right? When you think about it, Yesod in the body refers to the Brit Milah, right? Brit Milah brings life. That is the purpose of the Brit Milah, to bring life, right? Khalila, if the Yesod is used not to bring life, then you're wasting life. Wasting the power of life is worse than death. This is why the Isur of Zera Levatala is so bad, right? Because you're wasting power of life. Worse than death, because death is transitional between physical life to spiritual life. Here, you take a potential of life and you waste it, and now that potential is stuck. It never sees fruition, never sees reality, never sees an end purpose. ושם קלטה, don't want to confuse. Okay, ושם קלטה כוח האצילות, and here ends the influx of what is called Atzilut, the noblest. Olam HaAtzilut ends. Okay, mean the Ishtalshelut, the ore of those three pipelines of light that created all these vessels. After the Yesod stopped creating vessels, finished. So we have three that are three. We have three lights that creates three layers. The layers of the Chokhmah Bina V'Da'at, that is three. The layer of Chesed Gvura Tiferet, okay, which is number two, and the layer of Netzach Hod Yesod. Now, what's important, and we're going to see, is that all this ends up, again, all this is a potential. Even Yesod, that is called El Chai, that is the seal of life, is a potential, right? It's a potential to life. How all this potential crystallizes itself into reality, and we're still in the spirituality here, yeah? So it's called the Shekhinah. It's called the Malchut. Malchut is a Shekhinah. Malchut is only, so let me explain what is Malchut, what is Shekhinah. In all that shower of light, there is a will to realize, to create. The purpose of all this is to end up creating something, right? You build a home, you have a blueprint, and you have an architect, and you have builders, and you have whatever. All this is for what? All these efforts is for what? At the end, to live in that house. That's the purpose. So all these light, all this koach has always constantly one purpose: to reside, to live amongst the Tachtonim. That's called Shechina, Shochen, to reside. And that's the Malchut. So the Malchut does not have of its and does not have an essence, right? It's not like the Netzach, which has a light of its own with a vessel, the Yesod or the Malchut or the Chesed. Each one is a trait. Each one is an expression, right, of its own. All this together comes down, right, to reside, with a purpose to reside. That purpose to reside is called the Malchut. It's called the Shekhinah. The All Am Israel, the whole creation is what? Lehakim Shechinta me'afra. We brought down the Shekhinah to the ground. And now the whole avodah is to what? To uplift that Shekhinah, to bring back that Shekhinah to its real purpose. It's like you have a king that gave birth to a prince, and the purpose of that prince, firstborn, is for him to become a king again, right? But instead, the chaperone of that boy, of that prince, takes the prince and brings it to I don't know where, and turns him into a garbage guy, into somebody a vagabond. The king brings his army and tells his army, "Bring me back my son. I didn't bring a son to this world to end up in the middle of nowhere picking up garbage. He needs to rule the country. He needs to be a king, right?" So he sends an army. Kadosh Baruch Hu sends the army. What's the army? Am Israel. And what's the purpose of the army? Is to find the boy and bring him back to the palace. All the mitzvot, all the Torah, all the tefillot, everything revolves around what? To uplift, to bring back the Shekhinah to its purpose. That is what we call the Olam HaAtzilut. That's called the Olam HaAtzilut. Now, what happens when all this light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down actually resides, right? And by the way, there's not one light that everybody works on that needs every tefillah, every mitzvah, every effort, you trigger another connection where the light resides. Every time you're mechabed, you give kavod to the Shekhinah, right? Every time you give kavod to the Shekhinah, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what are you doing? You put forward the purpose of creation, which is for Hashem to reside. So you allow at that moment the Shekhinah to receive of that light. Good? And you do the tikkun of that spark, of that moment, of that effort. When you do that, the Malchut is considered the Nekeva. The Nekeva is the female. Okay? Why? Because it receives. The female receives from the male. Right? The woman receives from the man. So the Shekhinah, in order to be able to reside, it needs to receive the light. The Malchut needs to receive the light. Right? Hashem keeps on showering light. The vessel was broken. Malchut Hashem is broken. There's no Malchut Hashem. We have to rebuild Malchut Hashem. How do you build the Malchut? Malchut Hashem is what? Kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a king. Through Torah mitzvot. You do berachot correctly, you do mitzvot properly. Yeah. Your life is surrounded by Torah, mitzvot, ma'asim tovim. What happens? You create that vessel, okay, that now gives the purpose for the light to come down. and now you serve the purpose. You serve the purpose. So what you're doing is you're taking Kivyachol, the concept of male, which is Hashem's that gives, the concept of female, which is the Malchut to receive, and together there's unity. When there's unity, there's harmony, there's love. When there's love, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showers, now the light spreads around you. The aura of the tzaddikim, when you see Anashim Kedoshim, Anashim Tzaddikim, you see holy people, they radiate, right? You see them, you're around them, and you feel uplifted. You feel something special. When we go to Chacham Ovadia, or Rav Steinman, or Chaim Kanievsky, or Rav Eliashiv, the moment you get close to them, you see them, you feel elevated, right? You feel naked, elevated, yeah? What is that? This is the radiation of this harmony they create in their service to Hashem. The learning of Torah, the mitzvot, the tefillah, it's powerful.
In Israel too, when you're in Israel, you feel that energy.
Yes, yeah, that's the Kedusha Ve'eretz Israel, correct. There's the same thing. We're going to get there because, yes, you're right. This same concept will not only apply to people, but to Zman, to time, and will apply to Makom, to place. Okay? Right now we're talking about the original structure on the highest level possible, the Olam HaAtzilut. Now,
light, Rabbi. You have that light. That light.
What?
You have that light.
Maybe because of the Zoom.
No.
So what just it's good to understand. Why is the woman called Nekeva? Nekeva comes from the word Nekev. Nekev is a hole. Women have more Nekavim, have more holes than men. The female has more holes physically in her morphology. She has more holes than men, right? The purpose of the woman is what? Is to give birth, right? So she is called by her purpose, Nekeva. Right? That's the Nekeva. So when the Zachar gives to the Nekeva, right? Meaning when the Nekeva is ready to accept, the Zachar can give, right? And the Nekeva, if she's not ready to accept, you can only force her. If you force her, there's no harmony. This is why in Shalom Bayit, if the woman and the husband are not in harmony together, it's very hard to have intimate relationship. Isha Kedosha, a woman that's Kedosha and Teorah, she's going to tell you, it's not about that only. You know, it's about emotions. I need to feel loved. I need to feel respected. There's a process. For me to become a nekeva, to serve the purpose of the creation, which is the harmony between the zachar and the nekeva, between the man and the woman, which is the connection between all the constellation that we just spoke about in the malchut. The malchut has to be ready. If you don't put forward the malchut, if the malchut is not ready to accept, doesn't work. Doesn't work. When they are together, it's like you have now something amazing. Why? Because you have the Zachar, you have all this light of the Atzilut coming down, ready to give. The man, and this is why the man is always ready to give. The nature of man is always ready to, to give of his zera all the time. The chisaron, the weakness is where? Is by the Shekhinah, is by the Malchut. Now, when they're both ready to align themselves, the Malchut is ready. When you build up the Malchut, it's also very important because depending, Zachu Shekhinah b'nehem, right? Gemara says that if the Ish ve'isha Zachu, if they have the Zechut, Shekhinah b'nehem, the Shekhinah is between them. What does that mean, the Shekhinah is between them? They both look at the Shekhinah as a purpose. Right? Now, depending on how ready the Malchut is, on the vessel of the Malchut, you will have a certain amount of light coming down. So the more your Malchut is big, the more light you bring down. Right? This is the sword of Mitat Kesed, the whole yesod of Mitat Kesed, of the Yabetz, the Sidur HaYabetz. He has a kuntra that's called Mitat Kesef, the bed of silver. It's right after the tefillah, after the mizmorim of Leil Shabbat, and he goes through all the preparation of intimacy, right? He goes through, and the whole avodah is to prepare to prepare the intimacy so that you can have the Shekhinah come down. Okay? So the more you prepare your Malchut, the bigger your vessel is, and the more Shekhinah will come down. The purest the intimacy is, and the more light of Atzilut will come down, which will bring with it what is called the Neshama. And this is the Ibur. This is giving birth. This is the getting pregnant, sorry. Okay? Now,
you said that the Shekhinah comes down 3 times in Kabbalat Shabbat, Shacharit, and in this is the 3rd moment. Once you said
no, that's different.
when it comes
different. That's different. That's different.
Okay.
That's when the Binah rises and allow the Or to come down without any retainance. It's different.
Okay.
So says the Heikhal HaKodesh that when you have that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu bichvodo be'atzmo, him, no longer the light that he showers. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bichvodo be'atzmo comes down and say, what's going on here? There is, I see that the purpose of creation is being revealed, is happening. My original plan to create the world it's happening. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down, Shekhinah Shora B'nei. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down. And he says, it's like you have the wick, you have the oil, and now you have the fire. Yeah, this is the purpose of each one of us. Now, obviously, we gave the example of the zivug, of the intimacy, yeah, but we do that spiritually every mitzvah, every opportunity to do a mitzvah, or you create that, right? There's this potential light that needs to come down. You create the vessel, the light comes down. Every time you make a beracha, that's what happens. Every time you get tefillah, that's what happens. You eat matzah, that's what happens. You do netilat lulav, that's what happens. You prepare yourself for Shabbat. You make the kiddush. You don't turn on the light on Shabbat, and you eat food that is cooked before Shabbat. All these things, tzedakah, anything you do, you create that vessel, and depending on your kavanot, on your interest, on the purpose, on the availability, on your heart, you bring forward a vessel that's called the Malchut, that's called the Shekhinah. And depending on how ready you are, you will do a tikkun of that Malchut that you put forward, that you brought in. And he says, Davar Nifla, he says every time you have the zechut to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu down to witness that his will is being realized, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu kivyachol now witnessed, stamped that you are kadosh, right? That's that you are good, right? So he puts a stamp on you, this moment, and that light starts shining around you. And that beracha starts shining around you. דבר נפלא מאוד, דבר נפלא מאוד. Should we continue or maybe it's 9 o'clock? No? Okay, we're going to stop here, Be'ezrat Hashem. Because now, and this is what is called the world of Atzilut. We will see that from that world will be born what is called the world of Malachim, the world of angels. And the world of the angels also is built of 10 layers. And we're going to see it. We're going to have because we have Olam HaAtzilut, we have the world of Atzilut that we just spoke. Then we have under it the world of angels. Okay? And then under it you have Olam HaTachton, the lower world. And we're going to get into each one. Be'ezrat Hashem b'sha'ah tov. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom mevorach.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Be'avat tzadik, be'ava rabba. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.